And I think that our incumbent has proven that he's a good man, he's a good legislator in a lot of ways, but I think he's not that kind of Democrat.
Longtime activist Kai Newkirk is challenging U.S. Representative Greg Stanton in Arizona's Congressional District 4, which covers parts of Tempe in the East Valley. So Kai, welcome. I'm pretty sure you have been asked this question many, many times. I have seen some of the interviews, like, why are you challenging another Democrat when Democrats are trying to gain control of the House of Representatives and the Senate?
Thanks so much for having me, Elvia. It's great to be with you. I'm doing this because I think if Democrats are going to win big in these midterms and actually deliver and defeat Donald Trump's drive to seize power, win big in 2028, and create a lasting governing majority, that we have to prove that democracy can deliver big, meaningful, obvious improvements in the lives of poor and working class people. And so I'm running to try to flip the tables of the corrupt status quo. We have single billionaires in this country who have more money than entire nations, while for the rest of us, the costs of essentials from groceries to housing to healthcare and childcare are more and more out of reach. And those same billionaires and corporations putting unlimited amounts of money into our elections to try to buy them and concentrate more and more power in their hands. I've been fighting to flip the tables of that corrupt status quo for a long time, in the strikes in the streets, and now I'm running to bring that fight into the halls of power. And I think that our incumbent has proven that he's a good man, he's a good legislator in a lot of ways, but I think he's not that kind of Democrat. I think that he is not going to fight the way that we need to, not only to defeat Trump's authoritarianism, but to shift power from the billionaires and corporations to everyday people.
What is it that he has done or hasn't done that bothers you so much that you think the district needs another kind of?
Well, it's a long list, unfortunately. One of the big ones for me is connected to the basic question of human rights and immigrant rights in our district and in our country, which is very close and personal to me. I have seen the pain and terror that ICE has caused in our country up close and personal. And when I think about the fact that Representative Stanton was one of just 46 Democrats in the House who voted for the Laken-Riley Act that gave a green light to Donald Trump for his authoritarian mass deportation campaign, and to begin this erosion of due process that has gone to such extremes, I'm outraged about that. And I think that when he says we need to rein in ICE, and we need to do these reforms around the edges of what they're doing, that is not enough to make sure that this reign of terror ends once and for all. I think that this agency has proven that it's a danger to the American people, to all of our rights, and that it has to be abolished, and that we need to restructure the whole Department of Homeland Security and reorganize how we do immigration enforcement to put humanity at the center, so that our laws are just and around immigration, and we have a path to citizenship for the millions of undocumented immigrants that our nation relies on for essential things from childcare to farm work to caring for our elders every day. And we have to make sure that the laws around that are enforced in a just way that isn't abusing everyone's rights. I don't think that he's going to fight to get that done. He's not committed to it, but I am. I've been fighting to do so for a long time, and I'll never stop till we get it done.
Yeah, I remember when Stanton and U.S. Senator Ruben Gallego voted for the Laken-Riley Act, which was surprising to me how quickly they did it. I think it was within days or weeks of returning to Congress. Can you define specifically what the act has done and how Trump has used it against immigrants? And we have seen the images, and we have seen what has happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where ICE masked agents are just killing, including U.S. citizens, these 2 U.S. citizens. So we have seen in real time what has happened. Can you talk a little bit about that act and why it's so problematic?
Sure. Basically, what it did is it required the mandatory detention of immigrants that were not even convicted, but just charged of certain crimes, including things as petty as shoplifting or something like that. So especially in an atmosphere of rampant racial profiling and discrimination and hatred driven from the highest office in the land, that somebody A young person could go into a gas station and somebody look at them the wrong way and think that they did something and charge them with something without evidence, and that could lead to mandatory detention and then put them in the pipeline for deportation. And so it was the first push to say this mass deportation drive is so important, driven by so much prejudice, fear, and hatred from Trump, that we're going to start undermining the Constitution to get it done and all of our rights. And then what have we seen since then? According to Trump's own government's figures, the vast majority of people who've been detained and deported have had no criminal record of any kind, much less anything that shows any kind of danger to the community. And people who are on visas, have green cards, who have DACA, who have been veterans, and as we've seen, citizens have not only been detained and abused and gone through things that none of us would ever see as acceptable if they happened to us, but people have actually been killed. And so it's been a rampage. It has to end, and we have to make sure it never happens again. That's why ICE needs to be abolished, and we have to restructure the whole Department of Homeland Security.
And the pipeline that you were talking about is real here in Arizona and elsewhere. But, we know that if someone is arrested or detained and taken to jail, they would automatically, at least in Maricopa County, they would automatically be screened by ICE. So they have absolutely no choice. There isn't much that in Mesa, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. And in Mesa, quick point on that. In Mesa, right, we have a 287G agreement, right, that allows us cooperation at a deeper level between ICE and local police. I believe that needs to be rescinded. We shouldn't have 287G agreements anywhere. And I don't know if Stanton has taken position on that, but I'm supporting everyone who's fighting to end that agreement so we can stop that abuse from happening in Mesa.
I have seen Stanton being active on social media and in sending letters. Now we have, as you know, we have a new proposal here. Well, not a proposal. They actually bought the land to set up a humongous warehouse and detention facility in the West Valley. What else would you do that Stanton is not doing?
Well, I've been organizing to push back on the surprise mega detention facility since it was first announced. I've been up there to city council meetings. I've worked with local leaders on the ground, been there for protests, and we're planning much more. And I was glad to see after I announced my campaign that our representative showed up for a press conference up there. But I think that
I remember seeing him.
Yeah, we need leaders that are not going to follow the people, but are going to help to lead the people. I was helping to lead and organize the protests that have happened in our country, pushing back on Trump's drive to seize power from the very beginning of the time this administration was inaugurated. I think the first time Representative Stanton showed up was at a No Kings protest just to attend, didn't promote it on social media or do anything like that. In June, after months and months of abuses and so much fear in our country that the constitutional order was in basic danger. So I think we need people that are going to use all the nonviolent tools, from protest to pushing lawsuits to calling for impeachment to pushing for investigations to putting their body on the line to doing unannounced visits to organizing mass non-cooperation, whether it's strikes and boycotts. We need our elected leaders to be on the front lines and for us to know that we're shoulder to shoulder with them, that those of us that are taking the greatest risks not only have their backup, that they're going to be with us, and that they use every tool and opportunity on the floor. I remember John Lewis led a sit-in on, I can't remember if it was the House or Senate floor, but he was a representative, right? And I'm in that tradition of good trouble and of doing whatever it takes as a leader, using all the tools that we have to fight. And we haven't seen that from Representative Stanton, but if I'm elected, people will see that from me, not only in the ways that I have done already, but with the power of the office of a member of Congress.
And you have done that a lot, right? I mean, you have done the sit-ins, you have been arrested many times for civil disobedience, if I remember correctly. So talk to me about, what your arrest and how that.
Sure, yeah, I think we need an integration. I have been arrested in nonviolent civil disobedience more than 25 times. Dolores Huerta, a hero of mine, recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, I think she's been arrested over 25 times. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was 29 times. And so I follow a great American tradition of being willing to put our bodies on the line, being willing to challenge unjust laws and sometimes neutral laws that are upholding injustice and make that sacrifice. And it's been essential to so many fights, whether winning DACA or winning civil rights and voting rights, or winning workers' rights and basic labor protections, environment, women's suffrage, so many different struggles, right? So that continues now to this time. But I think we need an integration and leaders who have proven that they put service and sacrifice first, not their careers or convenience or access to power or prestige, anything like that. And so just the example I just brought up about John Lewis, right? He continued to participate in things like that after he was part of Congress, and a number of others have. And we've seen what Bernie Sanders and AOC have done, going around the country organizing these huge rallies, right? Being out in the streets, right? And helping to lead from the start, pushing back against this authoritarian administration. That goes along with trying to legislate, because ultimately it takes power to get bills through that are tough, right? And I've been part of that and fighting to win healthcare reform, 2009, 2010, the Affordable Care Act, or to defend it from repeal in the first Trump administration. I was part of leading campaigns of nonviolent civil disobedience and protest that helped create the conditions where we were actually able to get that done. Or in the case of the repeal, to have John McCain go on and give that thumbs down, that only came from lots of effort and organizing. And when we have members of Congress that are part of that and can help support it, I think it gives them more power in the negotiating room, right, to get the deals done. So that's the way I would see it, is that we have to be able to use all the nonviolent tools. That's what we need from our leaders. But it starts with authenticity, with conviction, with alignment with our values. You know, I talk to many young Democrats and Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim Democrats who question whether they have a place in this party because they've seen too many of our Democrats be, in their view and in my view, actively complicit in a genocide in Gaza. And I think those are strong words, but I think it's both fair, reasonable, and judicious to say that Representative Stanton has, because he has pushed back against any effort to hold the extremist Israeli government accountable, and he has defended them and continued to push to give them both weapons, diplomatic, legal cover, to carry out those war crimes and crimes against humanity. To me, that is unacceptable. I've been fighting against that from the fall of 2023, and I will always continue. I reject AIPAC, and I will fight to block the bombs that are being used in Israel's war crimes and in the genocide in Gaza. And so on. And people see that, and they see if people have been standing for this moral issue, even when it's been difficult, and it makes them feel like maybe they can trust in our party, right? And I think there's a big distrust, not just in Stanton and others because of that, but we need to go in a different direction.
You and I know that so many people are so disappointed with the Democratic Party for a very, very long time. You're correct that Stanton is not the only one. What is it going to take, or is it going to take people like you to get the trust back into the Democratic Party, or that Democrats are just not going to vote or go someplace else?
It's got to be a transformation in the party. It's got to be a flipping of the tables, turning of the tide. And I've been pushing to do that. One way we can start is rejecting the money from the same corporations and billionaires that are profiting from the status quo that is causing so much pain for poor and working class people.
Both parties do
Yes.
it. I mean, and candidates from both parties do it. Absolutely.
But we don't have
the Democrats
to. And
do
so
it as well.
I
You're
reject
right.
all corporate money, corporate PAC money, billionaire super PAC money.
How are you going to compete?
We got to get
then?
support from everyday people. So we ask folks that agree with our vision to go to kaiforaz.com and pitch in whatever they can, whether it's $1, $3, $27, $100, whatever they can do, right? But we've got to make that commitment as a party. I make it as a candidate, and then we've got to fight for the policies that will make a huge difference, right? The Affordable Care Act has been so helpful. It's helped people in my family. I fought for that. I went to jail to help win that, right? But it's not enough. We're still having to fight with these insurance companies that are nickel and diming us when we're going through the toughest things in our lives. We need Medicare for all.
I think that resonates with a lot of people, including myself, that I have to look for a choice. Yeah, it's very difficult. Very
And
difficult.
that's why I
very
believe we need to
expensive.
guarantee health care as a right to everyone in our country. We need Medicare for all. I've supported that for a long time. Representative Stanton does it, and he gets money from some of the private healthcare interests that are profiting from the status quo. But we need to push for things like Medicare for all, like universal child care, like a Green New Deal that could make solar energy free, at least during the peak hours of the day, in our state. We need to raise the minimum wage to be a living wage for across our country.
Would that be $15 an hour that at the federal level that Democrats have tried
Yes,
for?
but I think it needs
as
to be
a-
higher now. We started pushing for the fight for 15 started in like 2015 or earlier or something like that. So it's got to be higher. I think we need to look at.
Right.
That's right. I
think
think we
it's
need to
still
look at
$7.25, right?
dollars as a baseline now. We need to tax the billionaires and the 1% and the wealthy. We need a wealth tax on billionaires and much higher rates. I think it was reported yesterday that Elon Musk paid something like an effective tax rate of 3.5% for this past year, right? That's less than a janitor, right? This is absurd. And we need to push and make our economy work first and foremost for poor and working class people, rather than enriching the billionaire class more and more. And so I think if our party puts those fights at the center, like Zoran Mamdani said, we're going to make New York City affordable. I want to make an Arizona of freedom and affordability for all of us, right? So that's addressing the crisis in housing and healthcare and groceries. In Mexico, you might have followed this. AMLO and Scheinbaum, right? They had this policy of bringing together all the big players in terms of the food and grocery industry, right? And agreeing to this cap on prices for essential goods. We could do that here. We have so many tools that we could be using, but it requires us to break the grip of billionaires and corporations on our party, on our candidates, and say, no, we're all in for the working class. We're all in for everyday people, and we're going to fight for policies that make a difference in your life. Like Social Security, transform the lives of working class elders in our country who were destitute once they could no longer physically carry out jobs to get paid. And then they could have a retirement in dignity, live in peace, right? So we can do things like that now. Improving, expanding Social Security, Medicare for all, universal child care, and so many different fronts, right? That can make it so that our country is truly affordable, that a decent, good life is affordable for all of us, not just the wealthy. I think if we do that, we can stave off this authoritarian threat and build a lasting governing majority for Democrats to make our country, as Dr. King said, a beloved community, right? Where love is really at the center, because that ethic of loving our neighbors, right? That we want to live in a society where really everyone can prosper, live in peace and freedom.
That was Kai Newkirk, a progressive Democrat who is challenging U.S. Representative Greg Stanton. And as you heard, Kai is dissatisfied with the status quo, with the Democrats in particular. But I could tell that this is going to be a very polite primary, that he's not going to go nasty. This is at a time when Democrats are trying to gain control of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Kai was able to collect more than double of the signatures that he needed to qualify for the primary ballot. So we'll see this campaign. Follow me on social media. Listen to Notas con Elvia Diaz on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So make sure that you tell me what you think, and I'll be reaching out to U.S. Representative Greg Stanton as well.